Hey everybody, I'm Jesse and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about Generation X versus the apocalypse. And I kind of got inspired for this subject by Big Country and Vintage, a couple of comments they made. And Big Country pointed out something to me about the Strauss-Howe generational theory. And how it goes around in cycles, 4 generations. Every 4 generations, this whole thing resets. And when I looked at it and I look back, it explains it, and makes examples back through the generations, and it is very accurate. So I kind of have some faith in it. I mean, it sounds pretty plausible. And in that theory, they have different archetypes for the generations, and Generation X is the nomad, which plays right into us. The loner, the lone wolf. And in that theory, basically, it's calling for some kind of collapse, some kind of downfall, because at the end of this generational cycle, there's a downfall. And I liken that to the old saying, strong men create good times create weak men create bad times create strong men, back that cycle, right? So that's how this is going around, has been going around generationally for shit. I mean, it traced it back to the Roman times and shit. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. So thank you, Big Country, for pointing that out to me. And Vintage was the other one. He mentioned a thing about a label, Sigma, and that's the thing that alpha male and beta male. Well, there's such a thing, I guess. It's a newer term called Sigma male, and that is defined as a lone wolf who is outside of the society's normal parameters of alpha and beta, a lone wolf. And when I read that, I read the whole thing about it, and that was just me. That's how I was right there with that. It was just describing me. And I think that, and Vintage says the same thing about himself. And I think that a lot of Gen Xers can identify with that, where we are lone wolves in a lot of ways. And that lone wolf thing, it ties right into that Strauss-Howe generational theory of us being nomads. So the whole lone wolf nomad thing, I mean, maybe it's a coincidence, but it seems to me like there's something there. And it really seems like something is on the horizon, some troubled times, all right? I don't want to go so far as to say an apocalypse right now in the near future, but something close to that, like the Great Depression type of stuff, that was their downfall, their collapse in the end of the last cycle. It's like about every 100 years, there's that cycle goes around. So looking at those two things and looking at where we are in this generational cycle, we've got something on the horizon, something big and not good, let's say. All right. And I think just like the generation who faced the Great Depression at this age, Generation X is well prepared for whatever's coming, whether it be a full-blown apocalypse or a depression, a Great Depression or something like that. Which, I mean, that's debatable whether that would be considered a full-blown apocalypse. Maybe, I mean, that there are people who debate that. I just don't feel like it was. It didn't set society back to the Stone Age or anything for millennia. So I just don't consider that an apocalypse me personally. Now, why is Gen X well suited for this apocalypse? Any apocalypse that's on the horizon. Well, number one, we've just got this attitude of getting things done, okay? And because we grew up in an era where we were alone a lot, everybody's heard the latchkey kid thing and all that. So we were by ourselves a lot and had to do things for ourselves at a young age that we were either told we couldn't do or believed we couldn't do, but we were forced into a corner and had to do it. Okay? There's a big thing in the mind where people say that I just can't do that. I can't do that. Well, you can't, right, in that frame of mind. Now, when you're put in a position where you absolutely have to do it or starve to death or whatever, then you'll find a way. You will find a way. And that is what I believe Gen X has in spades. We will find a way. We'll find a way to get shit done. And now it's just become a part of our psyche. We find a way to get shit done, whether it's a small thing or a big thing, whatever, we get shit done. We find out how to do it. If there isn't a way to do it, we'll make a way. And that kind of mentality, that spirit, that never say die, never give up spirit, will, of course, take someone a long way in times of hardship, whether they be economic struggles or a full-on apocalyptic collapse of society. The other thing is that we are somewhat familiar with hardship, right? I mean, we went out and played in hardship. The way we did things as a kid, I mean, we basically lived post-apocalyptic lives, going out there and just scrapping things together. My first bicycle was a Frankenstein that I just put together out of parts. And that's the kind of stuff you're going to have to do in a post-apocalyptic world. You're going to have to scrap shit together and go out and figure it out. And that's what it's going to take in a post-apocalyptic world. You're gonna be out there foraging and trying to survive in any way possible. And again, Gen X has that. We just have that experience. That's how we grew up. I mean, not necessarily in a life or death post-apocalyptic struggle, but in that vein of going out there and just spending time hungry and figuring stuff out and putting stuff together in a way that would be reminiscent to a post-apocalyptic era. So as kids, we do have experience doing that kind of stuff. And as a generation, we've been shaped by resilience and independence. And in a post-apocalyptic world, you are going to need those things. That's just point blank. You're gonna have hard times. You're going to struggle, and you're going to have to bounce back from those struggles. You're going to have to find a way mentally to overcome that stuff and return to some semblance of normalcy in your head. Because everybody who's been through a long-term struggle like a war or something like that will tell you that the hardest, most difficult part of it is in your head. It's maintaining your sanity. It's maintaining a positive attitude. If you can do that, you're halfway there already. And independence, a lot of people are going to be on their own. That's just the way it is. You're going to have to. And Gen X has always been that way. I mean, we've always known and lived our lives in a way that we know that we're who we can count on. The buck stops here. And we look around, there aren't a whole lot of people that we can count on. When the chips fall, we're by ourselves. And I think that's something that is a very, very wide trait that runs through Gen X, is that streak of independence, because of the way we were raised and because of the people who raised us. We were out on our own a lot. We'd come home from school and be in an empty house, or, and we had to figure shit out on our own, cook our own dinner from a very young age, cut ourselves. We'd have to go in the bathroom and wrap it up ourselves or whatever. And that, I mean, those seem like minor things, but as a child, when you're a child growing up like that, those things imprint on you for life. And that carries with you through your whole life. That vein of independence, that independent streak. You can get it done. You cut your finger really badly when you're 6, 7 years old because you're home alone, and afterward, you can survive it. And you never forget that you can survive it. You never forget that you can doctor yourself and heal yourself. You've done it. So, and you can't just lose that knowledge. So independence is a very strong streak in Gen X, and that will serve us very well in the hard times coming. And the last few videos, I've been talking about these cycles, these eras, right? And now talking about the Strauss-Howe generational theory, that's a smaller cycle within the cycle. And that is something commonly found in nature. Smaller whirlpools or vortexes or cycles inside larger ones, like the solar system is a circle, the planets going around the sun, and then the galaxy is the same formation, and it's got smaller circles going around the bigger circle, the bigger formation. So that idea of smaller patterns inside larger patterns is very natural, very common in the natural world. So that idea of time being the same way is not that far-fetched. So if time is cyclical, then there will be other cycles inside those cycles. You know what I mean? And it's when, these smaller cycles are going around, and when the bigger cycle comes around and lines up with it, now you have a full-on global collapse. Now you have an apocalypse. Now is this coming cycle, this generational cycle, going to finally, align with the overall cycle of the eras where entire society collapses? I don't know. Of course I don't, and nobody does, but it's always a possibility. But there's more proof in that generational theory that those two guys did of cycles, of time being cyclical, of it not being a straight linear thing. Okay, stuff recurs and recurs over and over again. Not the exact same thing, but the same patterns, the same swirls and eddies, the same harmonic resonance in time that we find everywhere else in the universe. And that's really not to say anything against any other beliefs, because I don't know any scriptures or anything, anything that says that time has to be linear, right? I don't think that the cyclical pattern of time is necessarily blasphemous or anything like that. I don't see it. Now, if somebody can point out to me somewhere where it says that, then I'll admit that I'm wrong. But to my knowledge, I don't know. I don't know of anything like that. So that idea of cyclical time does not go against anything biblical or any other religions that I know of. Now, in the coming hardship predicted by this generational theory, Gen X is just, I believe that we're just the best suited to survive this thing, to survive any kind of hardship. We grew up in these kind of ways, right? But within Gen X, we've got different cultures and microcultures inside of our larger Western culture. You've got urban people who live in the city, you got country folks, you've got people who are already prepping and they're living in communes and they're already prepared for it, and all they're worried about is defending their own territory when the time comes. So we're all going to have different strategies for surviving something like this, right? Or we might have to take to the road and whatever. I know I might have to become mobile just because I don't want to be stuck down here in Florida this far south without any air conditioning. No, I'm not looking forward to that. So I might have to get on my old horse and saddle him up and head north a ways until I get into some cooler temperatures, because I do not relish the thought of sitting down here without any air conditioning in this humidity. But even so, I think in each of our landscapes, whether it be urban or rural or communal, I think Gen X has the best chance in each one of those settings. All right, those Gen Xers in the cities, they're going to come out of there, or they're going to survive in there whatever they decide to do. Now we're depending on the type of calamity, we're just as susceptible to being taken out by the initial whatever it is, the asteroid or the virus or whatever. Well, I don't know about virus, because our immune systems are pretty good overall, but these other things we're just as susceptible to being taken out by. But after the initial shock, I think that Gen X will have a much better chance, like tenfold chance of survival than the others. All right. Number one, the boomers are just getting too old. I mean, some of them are tough old nuts, and they're going to survive no matter what. But then the younger generations, they're just, they're just pusillanimous, the wimpy boys or whatever, except for there's a few, I'm not talking about every single person in every generation, but most of these kids have grown up inside air conditioned bedrooms playing post-apocalyptic stuff online. They've never actually gone outside and built anything or scrapped anything together or caught a fish or anything like that. So they actually have no real world knowledge of how to do things, and that is gonna play hell on them. That's not gonna be good for them when the time comes. But Gen X, we have all that experience. We've already done all that stuff. Even for those of us who haven't done it in decades, been out there, still we have the memories of it. We have the basic groundwork for it, which already gives us a leg up on most of the other people in these other generations. Just that. And also there's a big percentage of us, a larger percentage than the younger generations anyway, that have served in the military. So we have training with weapons, medical training, which will probably be the most important, which I'm glad I have quite a bit of, even in the infantry. But all that medical training, trauma, sucking chest wounds and all kind of, we know how to handle a lot of this kind of stuff. Even those of us who weren't medics, we were in the infantry or something, we got this alternate training. So those kind of skills are going to play well into troubled times. They're going to make us more valuable to the surrounding area. If we have these kind of skills that can help an entire community, then we're going to be more valuable. And that's just fact. And even those of us who didn't technically serve in the military, a lot of us have picked up a lot of those skills along the way, where the younger generations, they just haven't been alive long enough. We've been alive long enough to acquire a lot of skills, but we're still young enough to get around. All right? We're still young enough to do some shit. We're middle-aged. Maybe some of us we're creeping up on old age, but we're not there yet. most of us anyway. So I think we're in really damn good shape right now. Now, if it happens in 20 years from now, it'll be a different story. But if it happens in the next few years, the next even 10 years, I think Gen X is going to be in great shape to really, I don't know how, we're going to excel. Like, I've got that shirt, the apocalypse wouldn't set me back too far. I'm not wearing it now, but yeah, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. I'm half-ass looking forward to it. I'm not kidding. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'm one of those crazy people who like to test themselves. I just like to, I like to see if I'm capable of doing some shit. And that would be a great way to do it. Great way to see what I'm made of, to test my mettle. And a lot of times, just like the thing I said before about doing something, you don't know you can do it until you're forced to do it. Well, with all this technology around, and it's so easy to just lay on the couch and watch a video or something, it's more difficult to make yourself go out and test your mettle. Now, if I was forced to, if the universe forced it on me, threw an apocalypse in my lap, well, I wouldn't have a choice then, would I? I wouldn't have Netflix and some ice cream and shit in the fridge. I'd have to go out and wrestle a muskrat or whatever for some food, So yeah, I wouldn't mind it. I really wouldn't. I would half-ass look forward to it when it happened. So yeah, I think that Gen X and our lone wolf nomad brain set, our mindset, I think we're in an excellent position to face anything that comes at us in the future. Honestly, anything that comes at us, I think we're in good shape for it because of that I just said. It might not seem that way now, especially when we're in our favorite chair, sitting there flicking the remote or whatever and watching YouTube videos and stuff. I get it. It seems like the end of the world, but if literally the end of the world, but if it happened, we'd rise up. We would rise up and we would show the world what we're made of, what Gen X metal is all about, what Gen X resilience, Gen X know-how, Gen X independence and ingenuity, the old way of the Goonie, never say die. And that sums it up right there. That's Gen X for you in a nutshell. And that's why I'll go down swinging in the fight about who is the best generation set to go into the apocalypse. It's Gen X by a mile. And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll leave that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I appreciate those of you who do that. Thank you very much. If you're interested in Gen X gear and apocalyptic gear, Gen X Thinks and Gen X branded stuff, we got some pretty cool stuff over there at Redbubble. You feel free to go check that out. T-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff. But I'll leave that link down in the description as well. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. Thank you very much to those of you who do that. That helps out a hell of a lot, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments. Or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.